In awaiting today, I certainly have exercised substantial patience the past 5 days or so, combined, of course, with eager anticipation. And though with my content, I prefer to abstain from speaking on behalf of anybody, I don't think it would be inaccurate for me to presume that for those of you who are established BlackBriar listeners, whatever that might mean in terms of degree or duration of exposure, and I know that there are some of you that fit that attribution given you've graced my coverage before on 2 occasions. I specify 2 because some of you might be like, well, technically you've spotlighted associated works with their front lady, if you're not familiar, I'm just specifying here to set a good baseline, Zorla Koch, from multiple different offerings. In this case, I'm just considering BlackBriar specific, not the collaborative works as good as they are with just her. And again, those are exquisite, at least the ones I'm thinking of right now. But just BlackBriar specifically, on 2 occasions they've crossed this channel, those being Fairy of the Bog and the more recently debuted Crimson Faces. Both songs are exquisite if you've never heard them before. But again, I look at where us BlackBriar fans are, and I think it's safe to say we share in our elation, even on promise of entertaining in a new work. At least I feel this way. And again, I've been a fan of theirs for, some of you know this, for the last couple of years, probably since 2019 or 2020-ish. I forget exactly when I approached them for the first time. Probably 2020. Yeah, 2020. So maybe not as long in my days compared to some of you in faithfulness to this group and devotion. But I know whenever there's a new announcement, the joy that I experience internally just on the idea of BlackBriar is something that I've truly noted in the back of my mind. Again, I think it's universal to all of their works. And it's certainly how I feel with this newly unveiled track, the first single, in fact, or maybe second, because I saw, at least when I went to purchase the song, I pre-buy all the music that I cover on this channel in order to support the artist. Maybe if you're not familiar with my statements before on that, you're like, how would you know? That's, how I came across this. Crimson Faces it's available for purchase in the same album collection alongside My Soul's Demise. So maybe that was the first single off of the 10-track album plus 1 bonus song. I'm not exactly sure for certain, but I'm going to say maybe just for the sake of consideration here, at least with the unveiling of A Dark Euphony, I love the name, their sophomore album, in fact, following up on The Cause of Shipwreck, My Soul's Demise, at the very least, is the first main track put in association with the album. And I really cannot wait to entertain this. I mean, again, like I said, BlackBriar on Promise is just an exquisite dream. I'm very fascinated with their offerings. And I do hope that for some of you, actually, let me rephrase this. I don't want to prioritize one audience over the other. I like a balance, especially when it comes to music. Many of you know how much I love music as an art form. I've stated this many times. It's been a long-time aspiration to bring it into a grander presence here alongside other artistic expressions. And, art languages are very uniquely stylized on form, right? Especially on audience influence, perhaps. Music, for me, has been a dominant first love in my life for many years. It truly has a deep connection to me. That humoring works especially with the fellowship experience, which I love, because again, I consider artists like BlackBriar that are truly capable. And again, maybe you're not familiar with them, so I'll set another baseline here, Dutch symphonic metal. And I'll get to the European regard in a minute because there's just enough acknowledgement in itself there. But I love the fellowship experience that new music and such promising works can entertain. And that's, sort of a philosophy on this channel, that we are, in part, enjoying works together for the first time, whether they be familiarized artists or new approach artists. And I know for me, there's been many occasions, especially with the European regard, where the latter has been the case. Maybe for some of you, this will be, and I hope this is the case, that as much as I love you, longtime BlackBriar fans, I'm so happy you're here enjoying this work with me, perhaps for the first time listen. As promised, I told you I was going to be spotlighting My Soul's Demise the day of, and I'm here to do so. I keep my word on things to the best of my ability, though I'm not always on time with everything. I'm not going to that's not going to happen here, for sure. I do hope that some of you are approaching from the element of unfamiliarity. Right? I know there's probably many of you that have not yet considered BlackBriar's efforts. I can certainly say when I consider artists' regard, I always look to my personal surroundings and the company that I keep, which is a more limited number, to be fair, and nobody knows like 95% of the groups that I listen to, especially for the European regard. And I'll tell you, my amigos are missing out, quite frankly. And maybe you've never entertained this scene before. We do regularly on this channel. Many of you know it's a pleasant intoxication. I never really want to leave the European scene. Although talent is available geographically speaking on a broad scale, the European metal and rock scene is just it's thriving. It's so alive right now with talent, especially on first introductions. It's been wonderful to have that collaborative, though I can't necessarily see any of your faces. I've certainly had great exchanges with you in the comment sections and on feedback. It's been wonderful to have fellowship experiences with such adept and equipped talents like BLACKBRIAR. And I think in individual regard to them, it's fair to say that I would not have, because again, I've known about them for a number of years, maybe in comparison to other groups where it's more so been on a basis of first introductions. Many based on your recommendations, and as many as them that come in, and it's quite a number. I've got a master list that's growing by the day in terms of groups to potentially consult in the future. I truly enjoy learning more names that perhaps will become mainstay presences. And there's not been a song on this channel, broadly speaking, geographically, but also in the European regard that I've not loved. With BLACKBRIAR, I look at them and I think to myself that with the evolution of the prominence in European music on this channel and recognition of it, it wouldn't be as dominant as it is today if it weren't for groups like them. They were a first entrance door for me. And I've seen so much capability in the European scene since that BLACKBRIAR, I feel, has a great mix of. They truly embody beauty and individuality in music. And if you've never humored them before, like I said, I hope that some of you are approaching on a first name basis with them. I think you're going to be as transfixed as I am. Not only in capability of musical atmosphere, and they truly are talented in the scores they produce, but Zola Cox's vocals are, as I've said, transcendent. They're siren-like. They're so captivating, and I can't get enough of it. And on the narrative focus, I mean, as well in spirit in terms of the specific subgenre in the metal scene, symphonic gothic metal, they truly embody that. And the sounds of My Soul's Demise, well, actually, let me segue into this point because this plays well into that. Their narratives, mimicked by the musical atmosphere, are, again, like I said, just exquisite to entertain. And the songs, if you're not familiar with BLACKBRIAR, the gothic edge might produce a bit more of a darker atmosphere. And BLACKBRIAR has this individual translation on behalf of myths. And they're really well crafted, at least on narrative, like this one is. And I'm specifically looking at this in regards to, I have perused the lyrics in anticipation of entertaining this track with you. And I did watch the ad that was put alongside there. It's unlisted on YouTube. I don't know if they've changed that currently, but it was a short promo for the album's unveiling with A Dark Euphony, right? And they mentioned that some of the topics of the myths and the storylines of their pieces, which I don't know if this is going to be following a general narrative. Usually their myths are split per song. They're each individual. One of the regards was a song about a sin eater. And it's a term that I'd heard before, specifically in American pop culture type media, but I'd never entertained the definition. Maybe you're not familiarized with it either. Think going in, it's basically a ritual meal, or ritual style meal that somebody consumes in order to take on the sins of the dead. It's an interesting idea, quite frankly. It is of, I believe, Welsh origin or mainstay. It might be a combination of the two. It's been in other cultures as well. I think specifically, I don't like to cite Wikipedia as a source, but I just needed a quick reference. And I think there was some companionship along with the Aztec regard, I think. But again, most of BLACKBRIAR's myths are European-centric. So when I saw the regard in the promo, though, of this sin-eating concept, like, I wonder what track that's going to be. I figured it'd be very interesting to at least spotlight here, especially on myth discussion. This is the song, in fact. Because, again, looking on the lyrics in advance, this is clearly what the song is embodying on narrative. So I'm really curious to engage with this myth. And of course, we'll talk about it, I'm sure after in greater depth. And of course, as per usual, we have a video to accompany. So I'm going to go ahead and cue up this song alongside the video. We can entertain both together for the first time. And perhaps you're coming to my coverage on a fresh perspective of my work. You're not familiarized with the format I entertain to best suit and accommodate listener tastes. So if you want to read with the narrative, rather than just hearing it in the song, if you want to read along with it in lyrical form, I will have the lyrics available for you in the video feed. You'll see those pop up in a second, and I'll transition along with the song as we navigate together through the video for ourselves. I've just been ecstatic the past couple days to entertain this, and sitting here again with BLACKBRIAR, it always feels like a special occasion. I love entertaining their work. They truly are gifted, exemplary artists, and I cannot speak it enough. If you've not entertained their back library or their catalog of songs, you're missing out on exquisite, paramount talent in not just the European metal scene, but the music world today, especially on individual artistry. They're so capable. All right, My Soul's Demise. Let's see the narrative of this sin eater play out in visual form and in song form. I'm sure it'll be quite ethereal of an encounter. Let's see. Oh, there's those echoes. If you never humored her before, don't you love Zora already? Oh, that was sick. I love that. The scales and the variations. Perfect here. Oh, I'm dying here. Love it. This is a perfect growth. I mean, this is a little softer in terms of some of the songs that they've done in the past, again, set for the bass line if you're unfamiliar, but like I said, atmosphere and the builds, especially on vocals. There we go. They're going to build it to a riff at some point. There's such a consistent balance with this song. Nice differentiation. Great contrast again, especially on the song and presence. Oh, are we doing a key change here? No. Misdirection. I wondered, they've done that before. That was so cool, I love that. My word. Girl. Wow. Oh, wow. I'm trying to put together words right now to, again, express my absolute shock and just how beautiful that one is. You know, I knew going in, like I said, on Faith, BLACKBRIAR never disappoints. This one just goes for it. And it's funny, you know, again, I think about maybe some of the ever-presences on some their past debuts. And they do, again, being a symphonic gothic metal, obviously have a band, they have a dominant, aggressive side to their music, right? That's what I kind of expected, at least on debut. I mean, Crimson Faces was like that. It had a much rougher, emboldened energy. This one does too, but it's structured differently. It's a much softer, whimsical ballad number, but, oh, the variations on that. Where do I even start with the excellence that was offered there? I mean, in terms of a first debut, because again, that's how I'm considering it in this case. Maybe Crimson Faces is enveloped into a dark euphony, and I just don't know that for sure. Again, I was kind of confused by, at least when I went to buy the song on the iTunes storefront page, but the two were combined, if that is the case. But as a first debut, that's really interesting. Actually, it follows in the path of The Cause of Shipwreck, come to think of it. Because the same sentiment has been expressed, and I've heard the song, though I will say, you know, when you're talking about, like, myth and stuff, right, even maybe on the motif of the Sin Eater, but I'll get to that in a minute. But, you know, I think back to The Cause of Shipwreck, in the way that materialized, at least on single debuts. And the first track that debuted there was Seance. And though, personally speaking, I've made it, you know, clear on this channel in the past when I've approached all different sorts of content, really any content I take to commentating on or reviewing, that I come from a Christian perspective, right, in my faith. So while the presence in some regard, like the mention of the whole topic surrounding the seance, at least in the picture, and then there was mention of like a Ouija board in the song, I'm like, well, you know, a bit in contrast, at least from the standing of the song, but even I won't deny. I mean, again, I think in terms of working towards the metaphorical analogy, because there is that in the myth structure, right? I think they achieved that well. Maybe it's just in some regard I felt a bit like indifferent on certain elements, to be fair, but I will for sure acknowledge that song is very similar to this in the vocal exercise on Zora's behalf. She tried some things there, especially on echo and vibrations, that this song is very similar to. In fact, I can't separate the two in that regard. The seance is rougher in energy. This is, again, like I said, more of a whimsical, softer number. But doesn't that just enthrall you? Especially when you're entertaining it for the first time? Wow. I would love to hear every perspective down below on whatever angle, like I said, you approach. You could be a longtime BLACKBRIAR fan, or maybe a recently familiarized BLACKBRIAR fan. Maybe you share in your duration of time like I do. Or maybe you're a total newcomer to their work. My presumption, again, I don't like to speak for anybody necessarily, but my presumption is you were probably just as wowed by that as I was. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And you can probably understand, if you haven't entertained BLACKBRIAR before, why I truly do have such a reverence for the European metal scene specifically, but for BLACKBRIAR. And on the vocal credits, of course, a lot of that is due to Zora. And I think she's actually writing the lyrics as well, too. I mean, she really crafts such... Yeah, I think the song's written by a couple others. I think the lyrics are constructed by Zora. She crafts such exquisite works in scale. And I'll get back to the music atmosphere in a minute, but in the narrative, it's really interesting, especially when you analyze music. And I like to take all different approaches when I can. Sometimes it's harder to decipher, to dive into a song, especially on the first introductory perspective like I have in the model here. You want to be fair to every element, especially on explanation. You want to give everything equal coverage, but sometimes you have to let the work sit with you a bit more. This one, you know, when I say that, I think it again songs that are more narrative driven or specific, like, for example, BLACKBRIAR with a myth focus. And there can be, depending on the listener, practical application. You might have to rework the identity a bit, not in articulation of the song to be unfaithful to how it was originally pictured, but you toy around at least with the perception of the song and how you individually connect with it. So while, as you know, I'm looking at the perspective of the Sin Eater concept, I find fascinating. Funny enough, by the way, I will acknowledge this, the Wikipedia page, again, to get the definition, I don't like to cite them, but, you know, quick reference, everybody does that from time to time. They did say, actually, I'm just pull up a line here, yeah, in the attestations, in wider Christian practice, Jesus of Nazareth has been interpreted as a usual archetype for sin eaters. I think it's a bit of a bizarre analogy, given that, again, the concept, I understand, like I said, it originated, I believe, and it's practiced in at least history in some regard, at least is associated to, in Wales. It's not exactly a biblical origin. I can understand why somebody maybe outside of a Christian study and biblical study might, or from a secularized perspective, might consider the concept of a sin eater in that one is a certain act is transferring sins of one onto another, especially on the deceased. Well, that was I don't think it's fair to attribute the term there, because it's kind of different specifically, and even in like the act of the eating, because that seems to be where the transference is taking place. I mean, with biblical teaching, that was more so the crucifixion of the cross. That wasn't like the Last Supper, though there is significance to that story, and it is in part like a symbolism that we oftentimes, it's more like an event in remembrance, right? That how we regard it, especially in the church. You'll find in and across different denominations, there's a practice of communion. There's also the teaching, revelation of the, yes, we're going all symbolic here, but the wedding feast of the bride and the lamb, the bride being Christ, the lamb being Christ and the bride being the church. So there is a connective tissue there, but it's not necessarily in the sacrificial taking on of sins that was embodied by the Last Supper. That was the crucifixion. So I don't think that attribution is correct, but I could see why somebody would be like, well, it's kind of similar, at least in appearances, maybe, without maybe a deeper inspection. I find it fascinating, though. Like I said, I love discovering new aspects of history and culture, in part from European music. And BLACKBRIAR has been, again, this is not the first track to do this. Let's say, for example, if I pick one out from the last album, Selkie. That was about the Celtic myth of women/seals. Like, what, they hibernate like in 9 months in the ocean, come on shore for free, fall in love with a man, then repeat the cycle. Like, I never heard of a Selkie before with BLACKBRIAR, but again, it's like an introduction to past historical cultures and beliefs. It's kind of interesting, actually. Even if you maybe regard it as fiction and folklore, it's still kind of interesting to at least consider. But even in myth, you can sometimes find a connection, right? So I listened to this song here. Man, they're so personable of works. Where was the line that stood out to me? Your death will be my soul's demise. I'll carry your sins, but who will carry mine? It's just, and the way she delivers that message with the vocals is perfect, in my opinion. It's so seamless. No one can even look me in the eye. Everybody is flinching away from me as I pass by. It feels so, like, again, it's so organic to the Sin Eater concept, and it fits well into that story. Even I, as somebody who is very much an initiator of the storyline, could easily see that and pick it out with the definition. But even then, there's a relatability. Because I read about maybe sacrifices. I'll keep this simple. But like, immediately when I read the lyrics of this, I can think of a personal situation I won't go into detail on from years past, but I can think of a time where I made sacrifices in my life, and the ordeal was of good intention. At least I had hoped that good things would come out of it, and it ended up blowing up in my face. Not literally, but, well, emotionally. It feels like that. For sure, even 6 years later or so. And in the process of reconciliation, it really wasn't. I had nothing to apologize for, and I shouldn't have. But I kind of took on, like the Sin Eater regard. There were things that happened that were not of my choosing, or that were organic to my intentions of what I was hoping the situation would be. Which, again, as I said, if people understood this, because I don't even talk about my personal life. Some people know. Some people know what happened, but yes, I'm being intentionally coy. I'll speak on it one day. I just want to make sure that I am being tact right now while I consider what I should say without the perception of dragging people into things or dragging people online. I don't want that regard. I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble when I say things, but it was a very emotionally crippling situation for me. I'll just say that. And especially in where it took place. Anyway, it was a good situation gone completely chaotic, and I remember as an act of trying to reconcile a sense of maintained acknowledgement that I was not a bad person to certain perception. I played the Sin Eater role. I, in fact, took responsibility for, I don't think it's fair to say ever people's sins, but mistakes that weren't even tied to me. At that point, I departed from the situation, at least to the best extent that I could, and yet here I am apologizing for something I didn't even do, to retain, I guess, in the individual I was speaking to, a sense that I was still a good person and that I was valued. It didn't work out in the end. And 6 years later, it's still a it's an emotional wound I probably will never get over, especially with what it entailed for me. And if people don't know the specifics on the story for the most part, I'm not, again, like I said, totally unveiled about it. One day I will be, at least to the best extent that I can be, because I would love to share the story of what actually happened. But, as a larger point, I'm just giving you at least one abstract and veiled summary. I look at the songs, and my grander point being it is very easy, if permitted by the individual listener, I love that when it comes to music, to translate myth to reality, or it can be that, at least with some tailoring. And even with a song like this, which is definitely embodying the sin eater concept in storytelling quite well and exquisitely, as always with BLACKBRIAR, that's universal with them, I feel that there is still some real world association that you can pick out of a song if you choose to. And musically speaking, like I said, subdued a bit on energy, brings in a harder presence on part, strategically. I love the mapping of it. It's so precise. The vision of a song, even the video, by the way, the color scheme, especially on the mixture of the green against Zora's beautiful red hair, like it's just, Christmas colors are a thing with me. And so the visual, and especially with the gothic appearances, the black and the white in the background of the building, it's perfect. It's a great realization just on entertainment and conception. It's exquisite to humor as a, quite frankly, artistic work of art. And again, I love how much BLACKBRIAR goes for it in every regard. Narrative, with Zora, again, specifically, her vocals were just exquisite there. She nailed it. Man, I can't wait to re-listen to this song. It's so freaking fantastic. What vision. But even on the music, the scale of it, the atmosphere, the vibrance, right? You just feel like it's this encompassing masterpiece that you're standing in the midst of. It's unveiling before you. Even if, again, it's a positive subversion of expectations. I know that's oftentimes a phrasing attributed to the negative, but yet you're unexpected, right? You think going in, this might be because it's a debut, or at least it's perceived as an initial debut, a bit of a rougher song, right? No. In part, yes. Just mapped differently. Much softer, elegant, intoxicating, breathtaking, quite frankly. I mean, you could throw any adjective of positivity that you wanted this, and you'd probably be correct, I'm sure. I know many of you would agree. And again, I'd love to hear the mixture of opinion coming from anybody and whatever angle you approach, right? Longtime fan, first listen. I'd love to hear what you think of this song. To me, immediate re-listen. A treasure from BLACKBRIAR. As always, I love humoring their works, and this certainly will not be the last. I cannot wait to entertain the evolution of a dark euphony. At least on debut, or at least initial debut. Crimson Faces, if that was in fact a track combined on this album, that one was beautiful too. Great re-listen. And again, highly engaging if you've not humored it before. But My Soul's Demise, if either it's considered a second work, or second single, or the initial debut in adjacency, it is perfect, in my opinion. BLACKBRIAR really knows how to captivate your attention. Again, I feel that's been universal of every one of their tracks released, and part of, not just with the new music when you listen to it itself, when you encounter it for the first time in totality, but just even on Promise. You sense the brilliance, the execution capabilities that BLACKBRIAR easily masters every freaking time. And My Soul's Demise is 100% no different. I love that piece. Top tier BLACKBRIAR. With a very fresh flair in parts, at least it feels that way. And not what I expected. As always, I am absolutely captivated and impressed by their talents. And they truly deserve every audience member they have, and certainly new listeners, for sure. This group is going places, especially with the connection now to Nuclear Blast. That's their new record label. And I've entertained some of their talents before on other ventures. Let's say, for example, at least on recent memory, Follow the Cypher. They're pretty good, too. They're lucky to have BLACKBRIAR. It's maybe the wrong way to phrase it. Both are lucky to have each other. It is a perfect match, especially for a group that, in my opinion, deserves to go far forward than they already have. And they've certainly achieved a lot in the last couple of years, again, that I've been a fan. And I can't wait to humor more, especially in the evolution of a dark euphony. I am so eager right now, based on My Soul's Demise. That was a very fulfilling experience. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.